It's good so well. You can feel like I'm really, really good. Right, basically, I'm really glad that Ed actually spoke and shared that fact at the beginning, because we started this session with one of my two passions, apparent passions. The third passion is that I absolutely am dumbfounded about how much our creation speaks about our creator God. And the passion you shared there is incredible. And once I put it there, I was like, can I just make everything I'm saying? I'm a bit scared of saying it. And can I just make up stuff about how great that stuff is? But no. But my other passion is boring my poor family, harassing my family, to be there, about how broken I feel our society, economy, and political systems are, and how I have no solutions to that except writing. Okay, so that's kind of what's happened today a bit, I think. I really wanted to speak to Ed. I got to speak to him yesterday. I really wanted to speak to Ed about this, because I want to be like, Ed, is it okay to say some of these things? And the main thing here is that when I talk to some of the stuff I'm going to say, the finger's pointing directly back at me to start off with. Like, I don't, and the main part is I don't even know the answers. I don't even have the answer to what this is. I just wanted to try and have this discussion, really, and trying to see if this hits home with anyone, if there's some truth in this. I think there's very obviously truth in this, but like how this can work. So what I wanted to start with, my Bible's full of loads and loads of tabs. So I'm just gonna like look around. I've already lost one. Okay, in the summer we were having others share about the sort of like their key favorite verse, and some they had a verse they wanted to share, that kind of, and we had some amazing thoughts on those. And I was at that time thinking, well, what is it? If I had this opportunity and came out, what verse would I speak about? What would be my verse that kind of like bases a lot of my thinking on? And for me, it's about this. It's the verse about the greatest commandment. And what I've done is that I tried it, because I don't always speak exactly from every verse. I'll probably just reference the verses. I've tried to put them on the board in case someone's down. So in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, there's a reference made to. I was in Mark, Jesus is actually saying it, and in Luke, Jesus agrees with the guy who said it. Does that make sense? So I just want to read Jesus' words on this. In verse 29, he says, "Hear, Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this: love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these." Now, I'm going to bypass the most important one, which is to love the Lord your God. And that is because I'm sure loads of other people have spoken on this, and I'm trying to know that one. And if we're not doing that, we're not doing something right at all, really. And I don't want to speak on that one right now. But one thing that did come up with when I talk about it is that by doing the second one, we are honouring the first one. So if we are loving our neighbour as ourselves, we are honouring the first one, and therefore doing the first one. And for me, it was about like, it came to this question of who is our neighbour. Okay, and later on, I'm going to sort of reference more the Luke passage, which is about. In the Luke passage, he talks about the Good Samaritan. So in the Luke passage, a man comes up to him obviously and he said, right, what is the great commandment? Is it this? And Jesus said, yeah, that's it. You nailed it. And then the guy goes, yeah, but who's my neighbour? And he goes on, and we all know the parable of the Good Samaritan. Okay, and for me, this is kind of one of the most challenging aspects of it, is like who is my neighbour? And for me, I was trying to reflect on this and what does that mean in today's society? And I think the first bit that's like somewhat tricky is I think that all of us, including myself, have biases about who we treat as our neighbours. So later on, I'm going to sort of share some ideas, I guess, but we're all super happy with sharing the fact, having the idea that I look at you, you're my neighbours, I want the things that I have for you to have. I want the desire that I want and the things that I want in my life, I want you to have. And that's easy for me to feel that way. And it's easy for me to feel that way about the people who are perhaps in my city, because they're kind of from the same background as I am, maybe from the same culture as I am. they kind of have thinking that is similar to me, and therefore I can align with them quite easily. What's harder then is, well, I have to think about that for the English people, because I'm maybe building. But straight away, there's a bias, because like there's something in my thinking, the way that I've been brought up in this world. I'm hoping, but 99% of you out there be like, nope, that's not me. That's just you up there. And that's cool. But then when we think about those people who are in other places in the world, the people who perhaps we don't think work as hard as we do, the people who aren't very nice, they're also my neighbor, and they're also children of God. They're God's creation. And those people on the boat trying to get here, for whatever reason they're trying to get here, they're my neighbors, and they deserve exactly the same things that I deserve to have in this life, which is both nothing and everything, depending on how you want to view that. That's not a philosophical thing right now. But you know what I mean? I think that's the first bit that was like really hitting for me, is that like I know that I have biases about how I treat people. And I'm going to go on to, I have limits about the kind of things that I'm willing to give up and not have for myself, and who I'm willing to have those things, like how far I'm willing to kind of sacrifice for those people. And like Jesus, throughout the Gospels, he's hanging out with all the people that he shouldn't hang out. And we do this over and over again. He's hanging out with the tax collectors, he's hanging out with the children, because no one's hanging out with children, do it. He's hanging out with prostitutes, he's hanging out with, the guys who work on the boats, and perhaps maybe can read. They probably can read some stuff, but are they learned as others? Who knows, And who does that equate to in our lives and our culture? Do you mean like it might be that I'm a working class chap and I can relate to those people, but I don't want so and so to have the same stuff as I do. And that's the first part I wanted to discuss. Now, I had an idealistic view in my mind that you'd all be in small groups, and I could be like, hey, you guys can talk to each other about who your biases are. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. But that's horrible. So we'll move past that. But one thing I did want in this session is that if there's something that I'm saying that you feel God has put on your heart, feel like either to rebuke or to agree with, or you've got some other scripture that actually points in a different way or points in the same way, just shout it out. We're brothers and sisters, it doesn't matter. And I'm dancing around so many topics here, and I have to say about certain things. If there's something that needs to be corrected, please correct, and do it now, because then everyone else can get corrected. So yeah, also that's going to happen. So then I was thinking about what is it that I treasure, and I'm going to read a passage from Luke later, but what is it that I treasure, and what is it that I desire? What are the things that I want in my life? And what are the things that therefore I should want the other people to have, everyone to have, and the treasure that they should have, and what kind of template is there? So the first thing that I want to add about this is that like I have a strong personal opinion, and also a deep reflection on how I do it, because at the moment this is how I do it, and this is why I'm asking this question. For me, like philanthropic undertaking isn't enough. Throwing money at a problem and just chucking money at a charity isn't enough. It's self-evident that it's not enough, because there's so many broken situations, so many broken people, so many broken cultures, so many broken people within our community. Like the boy that was sad yesterday. Do you mean like just chucking money towards it doesn't work enough? Do you know what I mean? And then at the same time, putting money and resource and contributing our wealth and stuff that we've been gifted does have tangible outcomes. Do you know what I mean? We've done the food boxes during the summer and during the winter. That's real tangible outcome. There's stuff that we're sacrificing from our own pockets that is producing something, and whether that person is able to have food or able to have something else because they already have food, is great. But it still doesn't address the fact that they're in that situation, and the things that I have, they currently don't have. So how can This is why I don't have the answers. How can I act more to make sure that that's a reality? And how can we do that as a community? And like in Mark, you've got Mark 12, 41 to 44. You've got the incident there with the poor widow and the rich people throwing large amounts. And Jesus is kind of watching it happen and talking about this with his followers. And you've got the widow who comes and puts 2 small copper coins.
Right.
Nothing, basically, but it's everything that she has. And that's like right. It's no to be, you know what I mean? And it doesn't conform to how a society would work. Why would I, like, already destitute, give it all and make myself more destitute to help someone else? And that's and at the same time, you've got these other people who are giving large amounts of money. And yes, that work will be done and there will be impact from that, but how much self-service is there? And I'm being really careful with this because this is not pointing fingers, it's not trying to say that this is what we're doing, but it's just part of this large picture. And Jesus clearly shows the disciples this image. It's clearly recorded in the Gospels for a reason. They're trying to challenge us in terms of that. And then, if you thought I couldn't get any harsher, we go to Luke and go to Luke 11:42. There's this like huge rebuke for the Pharisees. It says like, "Woe to you, Pharisees, because you pretend to be ruined all kinds of garden herbs, but you neglect justice and the love of God." And that's like savage. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I'm deeply reflecting on that myself. Like, I'm trying to do the things that the right thing. I'm trying to give what I can, but how much of it am I neglecting? And then the John passage there in 13:3. That's more like kind of a reflection on kind of the template that Jesus provides. And it just reflects back on the first bit. So he's kind of highlighted these problems with our thinking to his disciples, to his followers, to people in the crowd. He gives them these parables. But in John 30, he said in 34, he said, "A new command I give you: love one another as I loved you. So you must love one another." And the reason I kind of want to draw attention to that is because of the incredible completeness of Jesus' love. Like, we know the full story. At this point, they don't know the full story. They're seeing this incredible teacher, this incredible rabbi of theirs doing incredible acts and showing compassion and love. But what's to come is the complete and ultimate sacrifice. And he's calling us to show love in that same way. I'm not doing the same act, but like that completeness and depth of love. And so I just wanted to include that there, as a kind of like a template. So like, what is it that we're treasuring? What is it that we desire for ourselves? Well, those are the things that we should try and somehow desire for others in a sense. And also, when we reflect on how we're giving, is it done in the right way? And when I've been reflecting on this for the last decade, and like, it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while. My mum's used to have like dark hair when I first started talking about it. And I have to be honest, there's been times where I haven't shown the care and the respect that perhaps I should have, because like, this has been deep within me, and I'm still trying to dig out these truths and these answers for like the broken world that I see. And for me, like a lot of the time, I was thinking, what's holding us back from like fully relinquishing our possessions, our wealth? Like what is it that's holding us back? And like the first thing that comes to mind is the kind of like normal secular kind of greed. But the more you reflect on it, I know that's not true. So, like 99%, 99.9% of people who are going to go be in church, it's not greed. But I think everything that it is, which is far more subtle, and think about this in terms of what the enemy does in terms of his lives, is the sense of security and control. and well, the security and comfort are there for control. If I hand everything over, I don't have control. I don't have comfort. I can't assure myself comfort. I can't assure my children comfort. I don't know that security is going to be there. And that's like terrifying. That's really scary. And it's not, so it's not again, like, so that was, I was really, I'm so thankful when I was thinking about this, when God gave me that insight. It felt like the crux of this concept of it, like, what is it that holds back? Well, it's our desire for some control over that. So I just want to read, because I rambled quite a bit so far, and I want to just read from God's word. I'm just going to read Luke 12, 22 to 34. And he's talking about worry. He says, Then Jesus said to his disciples, I'm reading from the NIV, Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. Life is more than food, and the body more than clothes. Consider the ravens, that you do not sow or reap. They have no storeroom or barn, yet God feeds them. And how much more valuable you are than birds? Who are you by worrying? Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to his life? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest? Consider how the lilies grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you, not even Solomon, in all his splendor, was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown to the fire, how much more will he clothe you, O you of little faith? O least of little faith. And do not set your heart on what you will eat or drink. Do not worry about it. For the pagan world runs after all such things, and your Father knows that you need them. But seek his kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well. Do not be afraid of the flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give to the poor. Provide purses for yourselves that will not wear out, a treasure in heaven that will not be exhausted, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. And for me, this is like, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And like I read that, and then like Bill's, I'm going to say the wrong way around, but the heart of the problem is the problem of the heart. Sorry, I have really ruined the mind. I think of this like 20 times and can't still remember. And when you read that, and I've read that before, I read that before here, and I feel you've read that before, and we're like, cool, that sounds good, we're not going to worry. And then immediately we go off and start worrying. Now, God knows that we do actually have to consider where we're going to get the food from, because part of the way he's providing is for us to think about where that's going to come from. I'm not going to try and never think about this too much or too much commentary on it, because I want it to speak for itself. But it says it right there, don't worry. And so by letting that sense of that longing for security and comfort, that longing for control of the situation be our driving force, then we're kind of not obeying this bit here. Okay, and then I wanted to go on. There's only a few references. I wanted to kind of just like skim over some of the other things, because for me this is really important to try and find like scriptural backing. I don't want to come here and just rant about some things that like were on my mind. I wanted to find things that had some backing. I'm not going to read all of them, but I'm going to summarize some of the ideas. So Luke 12, 13 to 21, that's the rich fool who just stores up more stuff and builds bigger barns and stores more stuff. And then God takes his life, and what do we do with the stuff? So that's just like speaking directly into that kind of like desire to accumulate, I think, and the false security that provides us, in that it provides security in the way that the secular world will tell you you're secure, but it doesn't provide you any eternal security. I've been really struck by this week about how we're eternal beings. That's our reality. We're here for such a short period of time it's important here. It's not to diminish what is here, and it's so beautiful and so incredible what God gives us whilst we're living. But unless I like fully lean in, I've got to fully lean into my faith and just know that like it's what's coming next. It's like always more important. And then I just thought it's like, well, I thought bring some Old Testament actually. Because immediately for me, it kind of grew back to Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes to me is like one of these like fantastic insight into humanity, and yet simultaneously a complete mystery every time I read it. I'm confused. I did have this great insight to think about it. I don't know, that's a tangent. But in Ecclesiastes 2:17-26, that's the bit where Solomon, or the wise man, is talking about the toiling under the sun, and like how we fall into those traps of like being defined by the work that we do, and just pursuing that and making that our identity, and toiling and then seeing the output from that work, and then just letting someone else pick up afterwards. I tried to speak about that when I was like 18, I think, at the youth group here. And I got one very unfortunate young person to come up to the front, and I gave him some very menial tasks. I kicked a bucket of balls over, and I told him to put the balls back into the bucket, and every now and then I'd kick balls back over. And I said, if at the end, you'd get £5. And I had a proper £5. We all know that even 10 years ago, £5 could buy a lot. And then like you got the final bucket, the ball in the bucket. I was like, no, you're dead. You can sit down, and I gave it to the other kid. Oh man, it was right. But that's the reality, isn't it? Do you mean like you do all that and it's gone? I don't know whether I reshared that meaningfully at 18, 19 years old, and whether you got what I was trying to say. I think they just got annoyed. And I think there was some grace going on, because I'm sure they shared it actually about the each to touch on. So yeah, so what I saw these two sections are kind of as warnings. This kind of like, this is like scripture saying, look, if this is how you act, this is like the outcome. There's nothing here. And then I've got a load of verses about mindset. So please bear with me. I don't even know what time is. I'm just going to keep going. I did say, if I keep rambling, the guy at the back, easy exit. I did one. So in John 15, verse 19, it's more about this, like, for me, it was this like, belong to the world, do not belong to the world, do not conform to the world. And these verses all speak into this, where Jesus warns, he says, if you belong to the world, it would love you as its own. As it is, you do not belong to the world, but I've chosen you out of the world. That is why the world hates you. And like, that's like, great. Jesus is telling me, but the world hates me. Great. That's like really what he used to tell me on a Wednesday night. But that's the reality, isn't it? Like we live counterculture. That's the whole point. Like back in, I don't know, some decades before I was born, counterculture was a big thing. Yeah, right. Like about the Beatles and all that. But we live counterculture lives. We live against the flow. We're radical and rebel against every norm that's meant to be there. Do you know what I mean? Like I had this discussion once with my work colleague, and I'm always considering about whether I'm giving it up, and I know I'm probably not. If I'm looking at my percentages when we're typing, probably have to the Excel spreadsheet. And then I told him about the fact that I was giving this amount of money to charities. I had a really good conversation with what church it was, and he couldn't believe it. He was like, "You're giving," I'm not going to say, but you're giving that much, and it's not that much. It's really not that much, but that it was like preposterous to him. Do you know what I mean? Like the things that we do are counterculture, and we're not of the world. So we need to hang out for a bit. And then in 14 and 16 on verse 17, he says, again, he just says, I've given them, not dismissing it, I've given them your word, and the world has hated them, but they are not of this world anymore than I am of this world. My prayer is not that you take them out of the world, but that you protect them from the evil one. And it's so great seeing that kind of come back in. He knows it's going to be tough, and he's knowing that when we do radical things, when we live this counterculture lifestyle, that the world's going to try and push us back and tell us not to do that. But he wants to protect us from the evil one and the lies of the evil one. and it's the subtle wise, as I said before. And then Romans 12, verse 2. I do dip into Paul, honestly. And it says here, actually, I'll read verse 1 because it's incredible as well. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and prove what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. I'm not going to go back to. So it was just this idea of like, what's the mindset? And the mindset is this realization that we're not of the world, and that therefore we don't need to conform to that secular ideal of success and that secular ideal of what is safe, what is secure, because God has promised us, as he says in Luke, that we're far more valuable than the birds and than the lilies, and that he'll give us what we need and the food. And it's great to talk about this in these kind of lovely ways that God promises us, and what the actual tangible reality of that in our society, because we still have to live in our society and perform and have like some basis of how our economy works. You can't just magically go to the shop and just magically get stuff, you know what I mean? But this is why I'm asking these questions, because they're all the answers. And then I was thinking about these 4 verses along there in terms of actions. I think I'll turn to that, but Acts 2 verse 45 is where all the believers sell the stuff and seem to move in together and share everything. That seems to be something that happened. So we're all keen to do that. We'll find a big plot. We're all going to sell our stuff and move in together. We'll have to do that. But what we're seeing there is like some really radical behavior again. Do you know what I mean? Like some like really uncomfortable, strange counterculture behavior from these early Christians. And again, my question, I'll come back to at the end, is like, how do we do things that start looking like that? Not being that necessarily, or not necessarily going as extreme as that. Look at my mum. My mum's like Rhys with me. But how do we do stuff doing stuff like that? In Matthew 19, we're going to read this. No, this is the one that found Matthew 19, verse 21. Jesus, so he's talking to the rich young man, and he said, if you want to be perfect, go sell your possessions and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me. Like, nice and straightforward, you know what I mean? Like directly from Jesus. And Luke 12 verse 33. Well, we kind of already read the Luke 12 verse 33 passage. Back over again. Sell your possessions and give to the poor. Provide purses for yourself that will not wear out, treasure in heaven that will not be exhausted. And then the Romans part where so Paul continues talking about that, and he says, love, I got in mind, love must be sincere, hate what is evil, cling to what is good, be devoted to one another in brotherly love, honor one another by yourselves, never lacking zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor, serve the Lord. So it's just like this mindset and this action that we need to do in terms of loving each other and loving our brothers and sisters. There are 2 more things I wanted to ramble on about. One thing I did want to make sure, because it's important to try and give both sides and try and encompass everything, is that it feels like a bit dismissive, like I said also. These 3 verses talk about the kind of about investment and about stewardship of the resources that we have. And so this part is also important. So like there's so much scripture there telling us about like releasing the control of the possessions, of the material stuff that we have so that we can help others. But there is also this teaching on making sure that we make the most of the things we do have. And that's not just, material wealth. It's also about our gifts. It's about our, the gifting that we have and making sure that we invest that as well. One thing that came up from a discussion I had yesterday with Ed was that we might all have different amounts of material wealth or possessions or things that we can do, but well, we all have equal amounts of 24 hours in a day. So if we're investing that time as well into this, it's really important. So the Matthew and the Luke 19, the bits where he's talking about the servants investing their money well and showing and reaping reward from that rather than just sitting on their stuff. The Luke 10 is about like being kind of shrewd and like managing things well and seeing how you can get the most out of the kind of limited resources that you have. So I wanted to talk about that, but it's felt as if it's just, if I'm just taking one angle all the time. And what I wanted to kind of like leave on was the childlike viewpoint, because I know Paul talks about making sure that we're mature in our faith and that we grow and we kind of grow in our understanding and mature in our understanding. But in Mark 10:15, Jesus talks about how we need to come to him as children and have that childlike perspective and childlike faith. And the kind of reason I wanted to mention this, and it just like completely grounded me when Maria told me about this. Something happened, and somehow Maria's phone got dropped and had a crack on the screen. We're still actually not 100% certain what happened. But the boys and all my gran was in the vicinity, so we're not going to point any fingers. But Maria was trying to get to the hospital. What's happened? Because it's going to cost some money to try and get this fixed. Jesse's response was, "Mummy, you can have all the money for my money box. It's quite a lot now. And you can have it all. I'm sure I'll just get some more." And it was just like complete childlike innocence of this, like, I've got this stuff, I've got my resource, I want to give it to you so you can have the thing that you need. He didn't know it was 2 pence and it was worth 10 pence. But he's also assured that he would get what he needed afterwards as well, given that he was going to like have what he needed. And so I've decided that Jesse's going to be my economics advisor. I think I wanted to finish on these things because I just said a lot of stuff without actually saying anything. And there's no answers, I guess, in what I've said, which is why I kind of had the idea of getting you guys to kind of, I don't know, have a chance to reflect and discuss, perhaps. The one thing that did come to my mind was this kind of like way in which we could perceive how we could have an impact. And here I wanted to think about like who our neighbours are and the kind of impacts it can have. So not easy, it's not easy. But I think one of the first areas is our church neighbours, our immediate church neighbours, us here. How can we make sure that if there are people within our church who are struggling and in need, that we can make tangible, difficult, uncomfortable steps as a community to help those people directly, and not just as like a sticky plaster so that they can get through. How do we transform lives? It's life sort of full. It doesn't mean like life without all the fun, but it's like the fullness I desire, my brother and sister should also have. And it's not about hunting and getting stuff. It's about making sure that they are fulfilled and as comfortable and secure as I can feel as well. And I feel that if we were to do that, then like those kind of lights on the hill, that suddenly people are like, that looks really different. That's a really different way of living, a really different way of caring for communities. And how can we reach that out into our community here, into Dunbar and Swansea, regional communities into the UK? How can we be influencing that? And then globally, and as soon as you say globally, it's like, look, I have no idea, because that's terrifyingly large. There's 7 billion of them, and most of them have less than I do. So I don't even know if I can help them. But somehow there might be a small bit that we can do. and I'll use PC Johnson. So I don't know how much time do we have? Not. Sorry, Ed. Right. Okay. I won't make you talk to your friends next to you. But if you can just go away and think about, and hopefully we have this in our minds in terms of, are there like radical, uncomfortable things and change and sacrifice that we can make individually and as a community that are going to make real tangible differences to our neighbours, and just change our mindset just slightly about who our neighbour is, what we're willing to sacrifice.